All right. Welcome into another episode of Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of hockeyroyalty.com. Today, we got a lot of stuff coming on. We have the Dustin Brown retirement ceremony, what we thought about that. The Copley extension. We got Clarke lighting it up in a historic season in the OHL. We got these recent string of games where the Kings have been lighting it up. Trade rumors galore. Is Chychrun here, there? Is he scratched? Is he not scratched? What's going on? Get into the chat, like and subscribe. Throw your questions in there. Let's go. What is up, fellas? Long time no see. It's been we had an off week. It was my birthday last week. Russell was sick. And we just couldn't get an episode out, so this one's going to be a juicy one for you guys in the chat there. But how you guys doing?
Doing good. It's good to be back. How you guys doing?
Good. Yeah. Again, it's happened sometimes, right? To get everybody's schedules to line up. So we got a week off, and hopefully the pent up, the wait for everybody, they're all fired up for the next Hockey Royalty podcast, right? That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about, right?
People
there is or there isn't. I don't know.
Yeah, people were salivating, just as right. I mean, the most watched shows are Last of Us and then Hockey Royalty. So, I mean, they were
right there. We're right there.
You're right there. So, people were waiting in the queue for us to come in there. We got people in the chat here. Nav, as always, what's up, boys? Welcome in, Nav. Appreciate you. Let's get it started. There's a guy, I don't know if you guys know him, by the name of Dustin Brown, and his jersey was retired for the Kings. Russell was there, so I want to start with you though about what you thought about it live and in person, how it felt, the atmosphere. But man, touching ceremony for me watching it. What did you think while you were there?
Yeah, the LA Kings did a phenomenal job of the way they handled the entire ceremony. I think going into it, you hear it starts at 6 o'clock, and it's like, how are they going to be able to string along like an hour plus of ceremony, whatever? But I mean, it went extremely well. I mean, Rob Scuderi's speech was great. Matt Green's speech was epic. I loved his speech about the Dustin Brown showing off his magic skills to the, I think it was Slovakian national team during the World Juniors or World Championships, whatever. That was hilarious. But yeah, and then Dustin Brown's speech was just, and then to kind of surprise everybody to bring out the Stanley Cup, because I didn't know it was going to be there. I think a lot of people, employees of the team, didn't realize it was going to be there. That was a big surprise, and to have them come out and actually lift the cup in the exact same moment he did when he won it, it was just really a wonderful moment in terms of LA Kings history and kind of remembering everything that Dustin Brown's, his impact to what he did with, or his impact to the LA Kings, and not only the team, but I mean, just the fans in general. Because that moment, to have the statue outside, that moment really enshrines kind of, or encapsulates like the entire like years of frustration built upon by Kings fans, and to finally reach that pinnacle of lifting the Stanley Cup. And to see an LA Kings player outside of Crypto.com Arena, every time you walk in to see a game, you'll see Dustin Brown right there, right when you walk in. I mean, it's awesome. It was an awesome night that the LA Kings put on for him.
Yeah, you'll see something that maybe sort of looks like a resemblance of Dustin Brown, I guess you could say. But the night in general, it was awesome. I mean, kind of a trip down memory lane. Watching that, it was awesome. So not surprised to see the Kings kind of put something on that went that well. I echo your thoughts with Green and Scuderi, and Dustin Brown's comment. Like it was just it was a cool night for a Kings fan, and I know people have their opinions on, does Dustin Brown get a statue? I don't think those people understand what he means and has meant to the organization. So I thought it was great. It was awesome. And then obviously the game to follow, the Kings, did their part on top of that. So all in all, a hell of a night, and good for Dustin Brown. Let's be honest. I mean, he did you think about what he went through when he first got in the league. He's named captain. is there any sign of a leader to have this a C taken away and still carry himself the way he did? I mean, that's leadership. Full marks to him. So awesome, well deserved, great for him.
Yeah, I was a little softy on the couch, man. I was tearing up, like listening to all the stories and stuff like that. And it just makes you go back and just like the memories of, people. There's been people out there that watched his entire career. Like I pretty much came in a little bit later in 2010 and 2011, but people that watched his entire career, you watch this kid grow up and become the captain, having it taken away and have it retired. It's like, it gets emotional as fans, right? Especially those fans that waited from the 60s for the cup to be raised all together. And a very touching moment. I think LA has been nothing but a class act with this core group of guys that won the cup. And Brownie was the first one to really retire that meant something, that was really a hard hitter in that era. And no pun intended there, but I think it was just very great. It was one of the best retirement ceremonies I've seen. Speech was fantastic. There was good emotion. There was comedy. There was a little bit of drama with the cup coming out. And I just think it was just, pretty epic from start to finish, and very much just a classic, what I thought it should have been, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You couldn't have done it any better, really. I mean, and like Joe said, for them to go out and win a game 6-0 on top of it. I mean, all in all, the ceremony I kind of separate the ceremony from the game, but that was just almost a cherry on top. Yeah. Adrian Kempe's 4 goals, Phoenix Copley's first shutout. It's just, what more could you ask for if you're an LA Kings fan, right?
Yeah, and you figure it's not that easy. You have the guys that are sitting on stage there.
Yeah, exactly.
I never know, and I know people sometimes say, "Wow, they got all the emotion and their motivation," but I mean, physically, that's not that easy thing to do, to sit there for that long and then have to flip the switch and go play a hockey game. So, but it was great for them too.
Yeah, I think it was just something. It was just something great. I really appreciated it. So I know we mentioned the game a little bit. We'll get to all those stretch of games, but let's go to the extension that happened with the Kings. Copley, earning an extension with the team. It's going to be, I think it was 1 year, $1.5 million extension. I know a lot of us were fans of waiting to the offseason to see what happened there, but definitely got the money in beforehand. What do you guys think of the number? What do you guys think of the extension, come in this early before the season starts?
I feel like the Kings are gaining a reputation of a team that will do right by its players, right? And they'll take care of their guys. And this is somebody that has come up, and he's been he's played a huge role for this team, just giving them, making the saves that he needs to make. And I think this is just a way for the organization to say, you know what, you've earned this. He earned his contract here. I think it's great for him. And as we've seen, Randon, I think you and I were both a little skeptical of the signing in the offseason, but it's obviously paid off. And I think I said, I'll give me any goalie for 1 year, and I'm not going to really argue with it. So I think he's earned it. I think he's played well. I got no problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, if giving a 1 year extension at only $1.5 million is almost like a, hey, thanks for saving our season, I think I'm totally fine with that. But then, yeah, I mean, he's been playing pretty good too. So it's not like it's the worst. I mean, if you go into next year as Copley as your one of your goaltenders, or not, we'll talk about later on. I'm sure we'll figure that out, whether he's a starter or not. But if he's one of the goaltenders, that's not the worst thing in the world for the Kings. We've seen this fluctuation with goaltenders across the National Hockey League. And if you can kind of find your footing or find your way with one of them, that's kind of getting his feet wet with the coaching staff, with Bill Ranford, the team is starting to play well in front of him. I think it's a good move for Rob Blake, and he'll just have to figure out what he wants to do with the other goaltender or the other spot that will be taken by whoever it is in the summer.
It seems like plenty of teams are accepting these big absorbent contracts. Arizona legends, Pavel Datsyuk and Shea Weber and Pronger there. So
Brian Little.
Yeah. So, I mean, to see if maybe Peterson could be on his way out. I mean, who knows where that'll be. I'm kind of surprised that we haven't seen Matty Villalta be brought up, but I guess there's really no room for him with that quick spot there. But I thought he would at least get a cup of coffee. Yeah.
It would have been when Copley was brought up. The decision would have been: are they going to do Copley? Are they going to do Villalta? And they decided Copley, and I think it worked out. It's paid out. Yeah, I mean, barring injury or something like that, there's just not a spot for it.
It feels like more and more, as much as probably Kings fans don't want to hear it, Cal Peterson and Phoenix Copley are going to be the two goaltenders next year. That's what it feels like to me. I mean, the way Rob Blake's talking about it. I mean, at the state of the franchise, they were talking about how the goaltenders are the number one save percentage in the AHL. I mean, they're propping him up. They're trying to make it seem like, and the thing is too, like, Cal Peterson hasn't been terrible in the American Hockey League.
No,
I mean, we have to give him his due there. He hasn't been great, but he hasn't been terrible. He's been giving up, I think, 2 goals or less in almost like the last 5 out of 6 starts or something like that. But and they're playing tonight too. I believe he's in net against Coachella Valley. So, but yeah, it's just tough because you have Phoenix Copley, who's going to be making $1.5 million. He's making what, like $1 million this year or so, and he's been outperforming both the other $5+ million goalies on the organization. So it's just hard because you want to see teams, you want to see that investment in the goaltending. But if you can go out and find one that's making $1.5 million and he's playing well, then I think you have to ride that horse.
I will say that I still think there's a non-zero chance that they can move Cal's contract. That said, I will say that I think Copley and Peterson are 2 of the goalies in the organization. I do not think they are the 2 goalies. I don't believe that Rob Blake goes into next season Peterson Copley as his tandem in the NHL. I don't know that I believe that. Maybe. I don't know that I think if that's the case, I think then his other options did not pan out. I don't think that's what he is hoping for.
If that's, let's say they do go out and get another goalie, I mean, that's more money you have to add to the salary cap, right?
I mean,
because you're saving right now, you're saving like 1.7, 1.5 for having Cal down in the AHL. So I guess you can use that money to go out and find a goaltender, but you're finding another Phoenix Copley. You're not finding like a player who's been a starter for years and years, like a Freddie Anderson. But so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I know a lot of people are hoping for like a Thatcher Demko, or we talked about UC Saros, but that's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. Look what Ottawa just paid to offload Nikita Zaitsev. Paid a second and a third and a fifth round.
I would do it.
And I mean, we're talking about two more years at $5 million. How much does Zaitsev have left?
I think 2. He might only have 1 more year. He might only have one more year at 4.
But he's also not a bad player though either. So
who is
it's kind of like Zaitsev. Hey. I don't think he's that bad. He's middle of the pack, depth defenseman. But we're talking about trying to offload a goaltender that hasn't shown any.
He has 1 more year. He has 1 more year at 4.5.
Okay. Now, going back to, like, if you are to believe, and I know we'll get into this, the rumors, they've already tried to offload Cal Peterson. Mm-hmm. So I do believe, like, if Rob Blake can get rid of that contract is going to go. So I think if he gets into next season with Peterson still here, I think things didn't go to plan. If you're to believe the reports, of course.
We'll dive into those later, but I don't think Cal is the player that they were trying to offload. I think it was someone else.
Okay.
But we'll talk about that here soon.
All right, let's go through some little foreshadow. Let's go into the historic season by Clarke. So right now, Brandt Clarke tearing up the OHL on pace. That right now he's the 7th highest pace for point per game at 1 point. I think it's 1.78. Right now is the 7th highest ever by a defenseman in the OHL. Killing it. He had 3 assists the other night. I'm never not going to take a chance to hype up the train. Get more and more fuel going in for next seasons. But I think I'm going to take this as a positive. We all expected him to go well, but I didn't expect him to have a historic season this well. And I think it's also positive that the kid is taking everything in stride, right? Like, hey, cool, let's go to play at Canada. I'm going to dominate. Let's go play at the OHL. I'm going to dominate. I'm going to be ready for next season, and earn my spot. Where he could have thrown a tantrum or whatever you have it, or not played or took it seriously or this or that. Like, he's just going out and just waxing people left and right in the OHL. Some of these nights are just absolutely ridiculous. We don't have to stay on it forever. I just think it's something that it's definitely going to be a huge story going into the offseason. I think we all expect him to make the team. But like where in the totem pole will he be based on what we've seen so far this season?
I mean, I think he has to make the team next year if he's playing this well. When the Kings sent him down, I think we all kind of expected him to perform well at the OHL level, just because of what we've seen at the AHL, what we saw him in just the short stint with the Kings in the NHL level. But yeah, you're putting up 1.74 points per game as a defenseman. Dude, that's some ridiculous numbers. I mean, you see each night like Barry or just highlights of 3 assist games, goal, hat trick game. Like he's doing exactly what he should be doing, and even more so probably, I would say. I mean, it's just an unreal effort from him night in and night out. And I think I'm excited to see. I'm really happy with what he's doing right now. I'm just excited to see what maybe he can do in the postseason once Barry kind of gets going. Because that's I love like that he's performing this well, but it's still OHL games. So maybe when it gets to a little bit more importance with the Ontario Hockey League playoffs, we can see him kind of ump it up a little bit. So yeah, but I'm loving every bit of it.
Yeah, he's performing. So those that aren't familiar, Byron Bader does hockey prospecting, and this is very production based. So this is something that Clarke is going to look really, really good in on top of it. It's not something that like tracks a player's their zone exits and zone entries type of stuff. It's strictly production, and what he's doing is like off the charts right now. I mean, he's projected to be an NHL at like 99%. I don't think I've ever seen one. I should say ever, but it's rare that you see a 99%. He's projected to be there's an 88% chance that he's a star in the NHL. Like this is again, it's very.
That sounds very factual to me based on what I've seen.
Very points based, right? They do it. He does adjust it for age and for level. Like it's not just he's tearing up the OHL. He should be like he adjusts it, and so like what he's doing is like really impressive. So this is why he is, a guy that I'm glad that it turned out that he was not in the deal. I mean, I think I would have, as I said on Twitter, like I would have bit the bullet and done the deal, but he's the one prospect. If I had to say, I don't want to move, it's this kid, and what he's doing is special. And hopefully he's an LA King next year. And I think he should be.
I also think that the Kings have done right by him this year. I know we wanted to hype him up, and as much as we want, the train was rolling along. We wanted to see him stick with the Kings, but I think they've done a pretty good job with the way they've kind of, I guess, gave him a taste of NHL experience, got a little bit of AHL experience, sent him to the World Juniors, and now he's back to the OHL. So now when he comes back up next year, it won't be like a new thing for him. This will be a little bit more of an experienced player when he comes to the Kings. So I don't think, and I mean, it could have gone bad too. That's not to say that there weren't any consequences to this move, but it's all played right for the Kings. And also too, you have to talk about the way that Sean Walker has played, the way that Sean Durzi has played. They've been able to sustain a little bit of high quality level of play with the Kings, to give Rob Blake and McClellan and staff that option to send Clarke down. Because let's face it, Sean Walker wasn't that good at the beginning of the year. That's when we were all trying to be like, where's Brandt Clarke at? Why isn't he in the lineup? But lately, we haven't heard one peep about Sean Walker's play. Yeah. Not at all from anybody. So I think hats off to not only what Brandt Clarke's doing, but hats off to Sean Walker and what he's been able to do to kind of, because let's say if it gone bad, man, this Brandt Clarke train would be off the rails right now. We'd be calling for it left and right. So props to him too.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see that. as much as we get Durzied from time to time, Durzi's done his best on the left side. Walker's really stepped up. Obviously, Roy's been solid. Nav coming in here saying that he thinks that he should be right D2 next season. It depends on which contracts get offloaded in any trades or what goes have there. But I think that's a definite possibility. Shake Master says, wouldn't you want to start him at RD3, get him at least grounded with the NHL game? I think I'm fine with either as long as he's on the power play too. So, I mean, as long as they find him a good pairing, I think it's more about not about RD2 or RD3. I think it's more about who he's paired with to make him successful, and then having him on the power play.
I was just going to say, I think what matters more to me is who his partner is. He wasn't here for a long time, obviously, Clarke, that is. So it's only a handful of games, but in looking at like some of the tracking data, he grades out really, really well offensively. Zone entries, he was excellent. Where he struggled was retrieving pucks, right? That wasn't his strength. He was decent at defending his blue line, but he was going back, getting pucks again. But talked about his skating. So I think it depends on who his partner is. I mean, I think you look at Sean Walker, he also struggles with that. But he's paired with somebody at Edler Walker is good at retrieving pucks, but he's paired with somebody that Edler who defends the blue line well. So he forces the dumps. His partner forces the dumps. Walker is doing a pretty good job of retrieving and leaving the zone with possession. So that's why that combo kind of works okay. So I think if you could find a partner that suits that game and can kind of protect him, if you will, a little bit, then I think it could work. Regardless whether he's 2, 3, however you slot him. I think it depends on who his partner is. And I would agree, Randon, that you got to get him on the power play somewhere.
It's going to be tough, though. Yeah, go ahead, Randon. Go ahead.
No, you finish it up.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to say it's going to be tough to find a roster spot for him in the lineup next year. I mean, let's look at the right-handed defensemen that are signed for next year. Drew Doughty, not going anywhere. Matt Roy, more than likely not going anywhere. Sean Durzi is also a right-shot defenseman signed for next year. Sean Walker, right-shot defenseman signed for next year. And I'm sure Jordan Spence, even if he's an RFA, I'm sure we'll be back next year. So that's 5 defensemen for 3 spots.
I don't care.
I'm just saying, we've seen Rob Blake show patience before. I think we got to, not that it's going to be the right move, but there could be a chance we see him in the AHL for a little bit at the beginning of the year.
No.
It's just the way it's been.
For sure. I mean, none of us would be surprised at that, right? I mean, this is the way the Kings have kind of operated. Now, the question is, have they operated this way because there was no need, because they were still building, and now they're going to be making the playoffs, knock on wood here, for the second year in a row, and now it's time to maybe push the pace a little bit here. So do they put somebody like Clarke in the NHL? Because now we want to make sure we got our best guys going. So, we'll see. One thing I'll say is, and I don't know if this is a segue, Randon, but if Clarke isn't going anywhere, which is what doesn't look like it, in order to get, you got to give. And if they're going to take a big swing here, whether it's deadline or in the off season, Jordan Spence could be one that goes, just because of, again, you mentioned all the right shot D. You didn't even mention the right shot D that's playing on the left side in Sean Durzi. Yeah. So, we're all big fans of Jordan Spence, but you got to give to get. And if Clarke is quote unquote untouchable,
it'd be funny. I'm just thought of this right now. All the reports about the Kings and Bruins playing in Australia next year. I wonder if it would be funny if they're like, hey, Kings, we want to get you over there because you got Jordan Spence and blah blah blah. He's gonna be great. Oh yeah, we might be trading him. So we'll have to hold off. And now they're holding it off. So I don't know. I think that'd be pretty funny. But yeah, it makes total sense in the world. I mean, if you're not going to trade Brant Clarke, I mean, Jordan Spence is also a really good player that's lighting up the AHL, that deserves NHL minutes, probably before Brant Clarke. So, I mean, he's also would be a really strong piece in any type of trade. So
correct. And
make something happen.
Yeah.
Do something.
Yep.
So I'll leave it with this. And Scott Wheeler put him as a friend of the pod. Scott Wheeler put him as number 6 prospect in all of hockey.
Yeah, he really likes him.
And says he's got a unicorn. But this is what he said about his defense. He said he's a very odd player because he's great at a lot of things. His knee knocks and the way he rises inside edges, he's just not a natural athlete from what I've seen, though he has worked hard to build out his frame and his strength, which could be a benefit of him waiting one more season. But I don't think any of those things are prohibitive to his development, and he's actually a better defender, which is his biggest misnomer as a hockey player against the rush and inside his own zone than he gets credit for. So, talking to him and seeing a lot of his writing, I think you look at you see sometimes where he just floats and you're like, okay, what are you doing there? But I think he reads the defensive side of the puck very well. He knows where he needs to be. He's just not a natural athlete as far as just a lockdown. I think he's better than what a lot of people think down there. You look the way he played this season, I wasn't scared of him being on the ice, out there. So, can he improve? Sure. But I think he's lethal. I think he's a unicorn on the offense that maybe will be unrivaled. I mean, I don't know what the odds would be right now of Brandt Clarke winning a Norris Trophy in his career, but I think it's probably pretty high. I mean, considering it's usually a stat-based award now for the defenseman.
Well, if you're Byron Bader's hockey prospecting, I'd say you got a pretty good shot.
Yeah. So I mean, the fact that I think you could be looking at him, I think his ceiling is the best offensive defenseman in hockey. That's where I think his ceiling is at, and you just got to let it ride out. And if he's not on the Kings next year, I think it would be a mistake. I would almost move contracts for the sake of moving contracts just to make sure this guy plays.
I mean, that's what you're going to have to do. I think with Clarke, what's his best attribute? It's his hockey sense, the way he reads the play. Because if for a player like him, like Scott Wheeler just talked about, he doesn't seem like the most athletic guy. He doesn't have the best skating ability. But I think the way he is able to read the play, because we see it so much in the offensive zone, the way he jumps into play and picks his time, you can use that in the defensive zone as well. And if you're not going to be the strongest skater, even the strongest player, hey, if you're able to read the play, use your stick to break up a play and get it to the right player on the right teammate that's available, and you can easily be a solid defenseman, especially in this NHL right now, because you don't need to be a strong defenseman in the corner anymore. I mean, that's kind of what Alec Martinez was. He was more just stick checking, kind of in the right place at the right time, and we saw him break out really easily. So if Clarke can figure that out on that side of the game, I think he'd be easily. There could be a top 10, top 5 defenseman in the National Hockey League for sure.
I think you just look at it, it's so weird. I mean, if you go further down in the review, he's his skating is not that great because he, like you said, knee knocks or whatever, but his lateral movement side to side with the puck is elite. And he just makes people miss, and you don't really you don't know why or how he does it. He's just a unicorn. I just think he's too special to
he just makes the right play at the right time every time he has the puck. It's uncanny, really. I mean, you watch him and it's man, how's he going to get his way out of this? And sure enough, he figures out a way. And it's going to be a fun player to watch for the Kings.
I was all in on taking Jesper Waldstedt, which probably would have been a good pick the way he's playing now in the top 10
Still could convince me. Still
taking Clarke.
But the way that Clarke's playing now, I mean, I'm glad that they took him there. So
I also want a little side note real quick. Also in the OHL, we'll talk about Clarke, his second in points per game. Francisco Pinelli's 6th in points per game. He's lighting it up too. And 50 I really like Pinelli. Yeah, I got his stats right here. He's got 33 goals, 39 assists for 72 points in 46 games. This kid's going to be good. And he wears 71 because he likes to emulate Evgeny Malkin. So he's a big boy too. So I'm excited. I mean, with him and Lafreniere, there's some good young forwards coming up. Chromiak's lighting it up.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any shortage of prospects. That's why people that want to hold these guys and hey, Arizona's asking too much for Chikrin and all this kind of stuff like that. Outside of the top guys, we have plenty of people to throw around. Well, let's get into around the West. A couple trades that went down, not necessarily for any big talent, but people moving out contracts. It seems like the calm before the storm to make a big move. Obviously, Vegas moves out the Shea Weber contract over to Arizona for a player that doesn't really matter. But they're moving out kind of some stuff to make some room. And it seems like a big move is happening. Zaitsev out of Ottawa, well, he went to Chicago, right?
Yep.
And they're getting picks and everything like that. Chicago has, I believe, 8 picks in the first 2 rounds this upcoming draft. I believe is what I saw today. I'm not 100% on that, but they have lots of early picks. What do you guys think about these teams kind of like dumping some contracts? It seems like the calm before the storm.
Vegas is getting ready. They're gearing up for something. I don't know if it's Timo Meier. I don't know if it's Patrick Kane. I don't know what type of move they're making, but they're definitely going to be trying to make something here pretty significant. And why not? They lead the division. They have the space. We've talked about the West being wide open, and you look so far, everybody's going east. All these trades that have been made, the players are going east. So the West, nobody's doing anything right now. So I think Vegas is just putting themselves in a position to where, and I guess it's worth noting that I don't think the Weber deal has any effect on this year. I think it's more of a future thing. I think he was already on a LTIR, so that there was no they're not gaining anything this season, if I'm not mistaken. It's more for next year. But still, it gives them a little bit more space. So maybe they're, who knows? And Ottawa, listen, Ottawa's a unique team. I think that move of Zaitsev opens up some money. Like, they're a team that, they were linked to Chychrun as well. And I know the thing with them is, they're still young and kind of this up and coming team. Chychrun makes a crap ton of sense for them too, because of the contract that he has, the age Chychrun has, that it makes sense if they were to make a move like that. And again, Chychrun's the example, but somebody else that with term, maybe they make a run at somebody, because they're, I think, going to look to next year. It's been a disappointing year for Ottawa. And I think maybe they look to next season to be somebody where they're going to be pushing for the playoffs, like we're seeing Buffalo and Detroit and some of these teams in the East, as Pittsburgh and Washington and kind of continue their fall. I wouldn't be surprised to see Ottawa gearing up to maybe do something too.
Yeah, I think for Ottawa, I don't see them with Chychrun. You have Shabbat, left shot defenseman, and you have Jake Sanderson, really solid young left shot defenseman too. I don't see them trading Sanderson, who was a top 10 pick a couple years ago. So where's the space for Chychrun? I do see them going for a Parayko from St. Louis, because the right side has been something they're kind of trying to figure out. And if you're able to clear that money, man, I think Parayko with Shabbat sounds like a match made in heaven to me. That sounds pretty good. So it'll be interesting to see what Ottawa did, because that move today definitely opened up something, or opened up space for something for them to do. So we'll see what happens there. But for Vegas, what's been Vegas's MO since they've come into the league?
We'll do anything.
The number one superstar. Go after the superstar player that's available. The biggest name. Who's the biggest name available?
Timo Meier.
Patrick Kane. It's Patrick Kane. The biggest name. I'm talking biggest name, not the best player. The biggest name.
Okay, fair enough.
Patrick. Let's give it to you this. Who across the National Hockey League or across the United States knows? Who do they know more, Patrick Kane or Timo Meier? They know Patrick Kane more.
Hey, if they're getting up for Patrick Kane instead of Timo Meier, have at it. Good.
That's what I'm saying. It feels like such a Vegas move to go after a player like Patrick Kane. It makes really no sense in terms of their actual team to help the team win. But if you want to draw a crowd, Patrick Kane to the Vegas Golden Knights is the way to do it.
It'll cost them less.
I also too, I don't see the Sharks trading Meier to an in-division opponent. It just doesn't seem like, how are you going to sell it to the fans too, especially if they re-sign him? You're going to have Timo Meier going against you guys 3 or 4 times a year. That's a hard sell. So I see Meier going to the East, like you said. The Devils are going to figure out a way to get him. I mean, you already have all those Swiss players on the team, and Siegenthaler and Hischier, and then you just have Meier to go along with them. I mean, it just makes all the sense of the world. But yeah, I think Vegas is just trying to open up space to get Patrick Kane, because it just feels like the biggest rock star move for them, the biggest Showtime move for them. and they don't care. They just go after the big name, and that's what Vegas does.
Yeah.
So
I
don't know.
I can see that.
Ryan O'Reilly got traded to the Leafs. Seems like a very Leafs move. Already scored 2 goals for the team.
He had a hat trick the other day.
He did a hat trick?
Yeah, he had it. Yeah,
Buffalo.
He's got the empty netter.
Are you in mourning there, Russ?
Dude, I mean, a little bit, because he's such a good player. I mean, you look at a lot of his underlying stats when he was with the Blues. He's constantly just the best player on just a really bad team. You look at, I think one of the metrics that J Fresh Hockey had was just his line mates just aren't getting it done. And sure enough, you put him on a good team, look what he does. He's just lighting it up, and they've been able to. It was a little weird because I was like, okay, well, are they going to play O'Reilly as a third line center with Kerfoot and who else do they have? Or is it Yarncroke? Or Janmark? I think it's Janmark, or one of those. But they ended up putting O'Reilly in the second line and moved Tavares to the wing, which was an interesting move, but it's worked out. And then you get Achari too, man. I mean, for Kyle Dubas, I believe this is his last year of his being a general manager, of his contract with the Leafs and with the general manager. He had to go for it, and what bigger way to do it than bring in 2 players that are immediately going to help your team, and especially O'Reilly, who's won a cup before, who's a solid leader on and off the ice. I mean, it just feels like the biggest match made in heaven for that team to bring in a player like O'Reilly to help out a Matthews, a Marner, all these players who are just always been on the cusp of something, but haven't really broken the seal, just even broken the first round. So if you bring in a player like O'Reilly, I mean, I think that's just a solid move by the Leafs, and they're going to be a team to watch. Yeah, I think they need a little defensive help though still.
I think it's a really good deal, and I don't know. I actually don't hate their D. I think if they're going to get a D, it should be again, similar to what I've talked about with the Kings, don't half-ass it. If they're going to get a D, get a star D, because I think their depth D is actually pretty good. I think they're one of the better.
Didn't they just put Muzzin on the LTIR? So they should have a little bit of room, right?
Yeah,
I think he's been on LTIR, but he's officially out for the year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're kind of quietly like a pretty good defensive team. I guess I wouldn't be surprised to see them add a depth defenseman, I suppose. But if I'm them, I go for a bigger defenseman. Again, I go for
yeah.
I keep saying Chikrin, why not? You are one of the best teams in the NHL right now, and I think this was a big move for them, and they have the flexibility. I think, their spots decided. They're going to play Tampa in the first round, so they'll probably tweak whether they're going to play O'Reilly at center on the second line consistently. They'll probably get him some time on the third line, see what fits, see what works well, and they have the flexibility to do that in playoffs. So it's a really good move for them. Strengthens them, that's for sure. And maybe this year they get out of the first round.
Probably not. Anyways.
Hey, I think we need to talk about my favorite hockey team right now. And Joe's favorite hockey
Calgary
team
Flames.
right now. The Calgary Flames. I just checked. It's 3-3 against the Arizona Coyotes right now after the second period when they were leading by 1. God, I love the Calgary Flames. It's just
it is remarkable, this team.
They remind me a lot of the 2012 Kings.
Did you see the tweet that I put?
Yeah,
a couple days ago.
It makes a ton of sense when you watch them play. Just constant volume and no quality. Volume, and no quality. And I don't know what it is. They have good players. I don't think they have great players. Like when everybody was talking about when they got Huberdeau, that they did so well and they're going to be right back at the top of the division. I was like, I don't see it. But then they added Kadri, and I was like, okay, they're a playoff team. That makes sense. Nazem Kadri, he's been there before. He's a really solid leader guy. So that made sense. But man, Markstrom is a problem. Markstrom is just it's funny, Joe, because remember at the beginning of the year or the offseason, you talked about how you really like Markstrom.
I do.
And I was like, and now that we've kind of gone through this and we're seeing how bad he's been, I was thinking, man, with how many times Joe talks about goalies, I wonder if he was thinking the same thing with Markstrom. We're just kind of blinded by that, but it's just another goalie, hashtag goalie situation.
Yeah.
Right?
I liked him. I liked him. I think he's a good goalie. Like I don't think I love the contract, and I don't think he's like a top 5 goalie, but I think he was probably a back end to a top 10 goalie. Like one of the guys that I wouldn't have expected this to happen, where he'd be this bad. Like he'd be, his peak, maybe he has a really good season and he like can flirt with the top 5, but he should settle into that above average, just solid NHL, solid goalie. Like, but that hasn't been the case at all. that's
and
sure.
it's weird too, because like you talked about, like their analytics, they're top 5, top 10 in every metric that you could want.
And sometimes top 3. It's crazy.
Yeah, and except wins. Yeah, but Money Puck has them in like the highest Western Conference team to win the Stanley Cup. It's
why I say well I've said before, and as of now, barring whatever happens, we'll see what happens trade deadline. If the Flames get in, they scare me more than any team in this league, because
100%.
You look at that decor. The decor is so damn good, and it's just they're not getting saves and they're not finishing. And even back when yes, I was all in on the Flames at the start of the season, but even with that, they still needed a scoring winger. They still needed somebody to finish a little bit more, and they haven't gone out and acquired that yet. I don't know what they're going to decide to do here, if they're going to be big buyers or what they're going to do. But if they can get a scoring winger, I think that's going to help them. I think they need a finisher, and they need some saves. But
like Van Riemsdyk would be good probably for them. Somebody like a goal scorer, pretty much. Yeah, that's what they need. Yeah. I mean, but it's just so funny, because the way I love the Flames is because a lot of it has to do with Alan Walsh and how much involvement he always has to have on his players' team. So for those of you who don't know, Alan Walsh is a NHL agent, and he represents Jonathan Huberdeau. And I believe he did this with Marc-Andre Fleury when Fleury was with the Golden Knights, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there, but he sent out that tweet after the Flames lost, and it said, "This is what happens. We just keep doing the same thing, and blah blah blah, and the players are unhappy." And I'm like thinking, like, dude, you signed your player to an 8-year, $10.5 million contract, and he's absolutely underperforming. Why don't you take a look at your own player before you start talking about the team? Daryl Sutter's been there before. He's, like we've talked about, this team is supposed to be playing well. They're just not winning games. And yeah, I would be, if I met the Flames in the playoffs, I would be 100% scared of them more than any other team in the Western Conference, just because of how they play. Because they're a tight checking team and they play solid defense. They just need to get a save. It's exactly what you need to win playoff games. But Huberdeau is just underperforming. And that contract is looking so bad right now. And man, I'm when he signed that, I knew that was going to be a mistake. And obviously this is just his first year, so we'll see what happens. But man, rough start.
It is. And like, think about, I think back to the Kings right before they traded for Jeff Carter. It felt like the Flames. They were controlling every game, and they'd lose 1-0, or they'd lose 2-1 or 2-0. And it's like, I just wonder if the Flames, they don't need to make that big of a move, because I do think the pieces there are pretty good, but they could really use another.
They could use a Timo Meier.
Jeez, seriously.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen. Let's get it going over here to our sponsors here at DraftKings before we get going into our LA Kings. The action never ends at DraftKings Sportsbook, especially this summer, with tons of ways to bet on your favorite sports. You can fuel your fandom and feel the heat of the season like never before. Plus, right now, DraftKings Sportsbook is giving new customers risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's right. Make your bet up to $1,000. And if it doesn't win, get another shot to cash in. You can throw down in major action on baseball, golf, MMA, and more. Plus, with same-game parlays, spread money lines, over-unders, and props, your betting options feel endless. So if you want to bet tomorrow, Kings play the Devils. Do you want to take a Kopitar goal plus the over in the game? You can do so. Bet all. Best of all, DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. You can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Make your first deposit and get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's promo code THPN. only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions may apply. All right, let's throw it over to our recent games here. Kings came out hot. We started with after the Brown ceremony. We mentioned the 6-0 trouncing over the Pittsburgh Penguins. Mikey Anderson getting under the skin of Sidney Crosby. Then they double up and normally don't do farewell in Buffalo, but did pretty well here in LA against Sabres. 5-2 in that game. That game was pretty much over. Obviously handled the 6-3 against the Ducks, 6-5. 6-5 goals. The Kings are just scoring left and right. Offense has just been hot. Pick wherever you guys want to play. I don't think we need to go game by game, but just kind of pick some high points for you guys during this week. Joe, do you want to start on this one?
I just thought it was good that that they rattled off 4 straight wins. They had a good little stretch there at home. I know Anaheim was a road game, but in California there, and I thought that was big for them. They had that long layoff, and they had a game, and then another 4 days off or whatever it was. So it was a tough kind of momentum to get back into things. But I thought to see them score goals like that, Kempe scoring goals in bunches, Fiala looks great. Obviously, Kopitar now is putting some points up. You had the Copley fight. There's a lot going on there. The only game, the most recent game, I guess, is one we could talk about is Minnesota. And I thought they played a really good hockey game. It was just one of those games. I mean, you're not going to score 6 goals every night. It happens. And I thought last night could have been.
That's the new norm. That's the new norm for the Kings. So we got to expect the 5-6 goal games, right?
I mean, this is what's funny is going back to what I said a little while ago about before they traded for Jeff Carter. Every game was that Minnesota Wild game, it seemed like, where they would play well and they would just not score enough. But people aren't losing their minds about the game last night, I don't think anyways, because they've scored goals this year. That hasn't been much of a problem. It's just that was just one of those games. What are you going to do? So I hope people aren't too upset. They won 4 straight, and then they lose a game that they played really well in. That's a good thing. It's a tough place to play on the road, a team that's desperate for points in Minnesota. So they played well. It sucks not to get a point, but I was happy with the way they played.
I want to pick a couple things of what you said out and kind of cut that in, and we can maybe dive deeper. First thing you said was Kempe scoring goals in bunches. How is that contract looking right now? On pace for almost 40. I think that was the biggest concern. Well, will he double up? Is it a flash in the pan? Are we paying for one season? Is this going to be a Cal Peterson type thing? So far, returns have been great. He seems to have all the confidence in the world to score from wherever he needs to score. But that contract is looking really good so far.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, and you're seeing it around the league. A lot of guys signing kind of early after one kind of quote unquote big year. Most of them right now are looking pretty good early. At some point, some of these will probably not look good, but so far so good for Kempe. I know Russ and I think we would have almost preferred even a longer deal than he got. He's looked great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's just shooting the puck more. And to be honest with you, I didn't know he had the shot that he has. And I don't know if it's something maybe he's just developed more. Because, dude, I mean, he's lethal from the circle. I mean, his one-timer on the power play, I mean, that's probably been the biggest improvement of the power play this year, is finding out that Adrian Kempe is your weapon. I don't think any of us really thought that was an option at any point in the last few seasons. But sure enough, Jim Hiller saw it, and he's using it to his advantage. And it's turned out to make the Kings, the top 3 power play in the National Hockey League, which is unheard of.
We're top 2, I think. Yeah.
2. We're second going into the game. Yeah, you're right.
Who would ever have thought that? Jesus Christ.
He was a lethal shooter last year, and they kind of had him on that left flank, and which was not a terrible spot, but it was a terrible spot if you didn't have any way to get him the puck. They didn't work down low. They didn't use below the goal line. They're doing it this year. They didn't utilize the bumper last year. They're utilizing it this year. So the power play is just clicking way better by just some small tweaks and doing things that they just simply weren't doing last year. It was all perimeter last year, and they're not doing that this year. You're seeing cross-seam passes. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It's just because you had Kempe, like you said, on that left side, and you had Kopitar on the other side. So he's not going to be a one-time option or a shooting option. No. And so that's what's really hindering the Kings last year in the power play. And that switch to put Kempe on his offhand has just paid off tremendously. And that's been probably like I said, the number one reason why that power play has improved so much. So, I mean, yeah, the contract that Kempe signed is just looking better and better. I wish it would have been longer. I was hoping for 6 years. It turned out to only be 4. But man, he's turned into a goal scorer pretty much. He's if he can hit 40, that's something I never would have expected from Kempe a couple years ago. And it's just, it's working out like another solid move by Rob Blake to get it done under what, $5 million is what he's signed for or so. Yeah. So it's great.
Are you a yes? Are you a yes for 40? You think he gets it?
I think he does. He just shoot the puck. Shoot the puck. I think I shared the other day he's got like a 23% shooting percentage since January. So just keep shooting the puck and the puck will keep going in. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I think he gets 40 as well. Going to the next one the Copley fight, in the Anaheim game. Obviously, as the Ducks said, well, one, what a great own of the Ducks Twitter company by the Kings. That was fantastic. So Copley's got more wins than your entire team. But you don't really think about it. Like, I know when they signed him or whatever, you look back at it and like, oh, okay, he has a goalie fight. Like, he seems to have a lot of grit underneath his game, even though he's pretty like standstill in the net, right? Like the grit that Quick shows, like kind of fits his style of being kind of a maniac all over the ice and very athletic and making all these, crazy saves. One that he made in the shootout the other night, but like Copley's so stoic in net. And then like when he takes off his mask, he's like talking crap and punching people at the bottom of the pile and going out to fight Gibson. It was just kind of a side of him we haven't really seen yet, and I kind of liked it.
It's amazing what happens when you're in the battle.
Exactly. And the thing with Copley that not a lot of people realize, the dude is jacked, dude. I'm telling you, like this guy, like I've seen him in the locker room, and he is absolutely shredded. So if he wants to get into a fight, like I'm picking him to win 9 times out of 10. So I don't know I don't know what's in that tea that he's making, but damn, guy's shredded. So
you don't really know what he got all those pads on, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. He's like it's all hidden, but man, the guy's got some guns to him. So it was such a good moment. I mean that stadium was probably I don't want to say it was a majority of Kings fans, but it's maybe like 50-50. There was a ton of Kings fans there, and they were loving it. The Ducks deserve everything that they get this year because they're tanking, and it's just pathetic. But yeah, they deserved it. They deserved the beating on the ice and on Twitter. So I mean, it was just all in all a good night. And the Kings, Kempe had a goal, I think, and it was just it was awesome. I loved it.
All right, Russ, I want to throw it over to you. You were about to speak about what you're kind of taking away from this week. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what you saw?
Yeah, I think number one is the goal scoring. It's 4 straight games scoring 5 goals or more. I think that was the first time that had happened since 1992, I found. Yeah, it's just, this is a team that, it's so good as a Kings fan. You watched, like we talked about with how the Flames are playing, like you watch this Kings team. They were good and they'd win games, but they would be like 2-1, 3-2. It'd almost be like a chore just to get through 60 minutes of watching Kings hockey and hoping for a win. But now, I mean, sign me up for more periods with 5 goals in the first period. Sign me up for more of that. I mean, I was at that game and I was able to actually watch it as a fan, and it was really cool. And the comeback wasn't as fun, but hey, it made it more entertaining, and that's what we're here for. If they can make it a little bit more entertaining, score some goals, and then win some games while you're doing it, I'm all for it. So I think the last game was just a little bit more of an anomaly. I think the Minnesota Wild are just such a boring hockey team. I hate watching them play. It's just they went into a total shell, got a lead, and just decided to play nothing but defense for the next 40 or so minutes, and it's just boring as hell, but whatever. We'll move on. We'll move on from it and go to the next game.
I just think it's just been fantastic. It's just nice to like, I mean, the Kings are averaging over 3. I mean, mid threes and goals. Like, it's almost, you're going to get a good game. You're going to get some scoring. Like we said, where before it was like, okay, like who's going to score? It could be all the way into the end of the third period, and Kings will get 1 and we'll win 1-0. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. Like, if they don't score in the first period, it's like we're like, okay, what's going on? This team's not
Exactly,
not clicking.
right?
So it's been great. And oh my God, did you guys? I know everybody did that play from Fiala. He didn't end up scoring on it, but where he took the puck, like skated backwards and then threw his own legs, and I was like, holy crap! Like, talk about good money. Like, Kempe and Fiala contracts are just like, I couldn't be more happy with that.
I did like one of these, like in the press box. I think Austin Stanovich was sitting next to me, and I did like one of these, like, oh my God, like I cannot believe he tried to do that. And I was like, it didn't even go in, but I was still just like, for you to just think like skating in backwards, put the puck between your legs and then turn and fire. Oh man, that was just beautiful. Loved it. It was such an awesome play. Yeah, it's just so awesome that the Kings finally have a player that can do stuff like that. I mean, I know Ziggy Palffy did stuff like that, but yeah, it's been so long, and he's such a fun player to watch. Even in the Arizona game, the goal he scored there, that was a pretty goal in itself. And it's just highlight reel, really nice move after highlight reel move. And even in the Minnesota game, he didn't score, but dude, there were shifts where he's like, "Give me the puck. I'm going to do whatever I want and just try to score a goal. Just kind of follow me around here."
And amazingly, he's doing it with any line mates he possibly can, and most recently Lizotte and Iafallo. Just like, who would have thought? I would have bet any amount of money that like you would have wanted that he wouldn't have been paired with Lizotte at the beginning of the season, nor being this successful with that group of guys. So he just seems to be the jigsaw piece that can fit anywhere in the puzzle.
We talked about this a couple months ago. Blake can put him anywhere, and he can drive a line. I mean, it's impressive. I mean, he leads the team in shot assists per 60, shot contributions per 60. He's one of the best in the league in terms of 5-on-5 and controlling and driving a line. And we heard that coming in, seeing it now game in, game out. It is freaking impressive what he can do.
Like,
it's wild that the Kings are the team now that takes a player that was almost restrained a little bit from the Wild. Because I mean, I wasn't aware of the skill set that he has when he was in Minnesota. I mean, I saw flashes of it, but you never knew it was on this much of a consistent basis.
Yeah.
And now that he comes to the Kings, and usually LA is more like where points go to die. Like you come to LA, you're not scoring goals. But now, he could have a 90-plus point season. This is just crazy.
I mean, I remember, Russ, I think I had messaged you once when I was doing, the tracking the games for the shot contributions. I was just like, oh my God. You never know what he's doing when he gets the puck. And he's so, I was like, he's even better than I thought he was. This kid's crazy. He's really good.
It'll be interesting to see if this is like the third line is where he sticks when we get close to the playoffs. That'll be, because as much as I love Blake Lizotte, and I know as much as you love Blake Lizotte and everything, it's just I don't know if that's sustainable for Fiala to be playing alongside him. It's just I like it right now. I would like a little bit more of an improvement there, and that's kind of what I wrote about in the last article I had. Like Nick Bonino, he's played with Fiala before. So he has that chemistry there. We've seen people try to have to adapt to Fiala's play style a little bit. So if you can insert a player like Nick Bonino on the third line, that's where I also talked about with Ryan O'Reilly. I mean, if you can put a player, I think you have really solid 4 center positions there locked up for playoff time.
I've had questions about I love Blake Lizotte as a fourth line, and I've had questions about, can Blake Lizotte be a third line center? It's like, why? He's making me a believer, and you figure, well, but does he produce enough? Well, he's third on the team in primary points at 5-on-5, tied with only Fiala with primary points per 60 minutes. Third on the team in primary assists. Like, he is producing at 5-on-5. It's, and yes, a lot of that's Fiala, but it's also a lot Blake Lizotte. I mean, he's top 3 on the team in shot assists per 60. Like, he's kind of doing it. I mean,
yeah.
I see where you're going, and I had the same thought a few weeks back, like, they probably need a third line center and push Lizotte down one. I mean, you could maybe still make the argument because now the fourth line center is that good enough. You could make that case, right? But I don't know. He's making a believer out of me that he can play 3C, and I kind of take Rob Blake's. I think he really likes this forward group, and I reading between the lines of after the Mikey Anderson contract, he was asked a question about the trade deadline and all that stuff, and I'm skeptical that they add a forward. I know we've talked about it. I think we're on the same page there, but I'm starting to believe that, you know what, he likes the group he's got now that everybody's healthy.
I'm curious though. Let's say you do leave Lizotte, because this could be like, maybe this is like his breakout. Like, we haven't seen this Blake Lizotte before, and maybe this is the player that he should be developing into. So yeah, I would love to see that. But I think there's still a spot. And as much as I loved how Rasmus Kupari has been playing lately, I think he's been a really solid improvement to the penalty kill. I still think there's a spot there that they can improve on, because he's only playing like 10 minutes or so a night, if that. And you need to have 4 solid center icemen during the playoff time. Someone you can rely on in late game minutes. And I just don't know if they see that in Kupari yet.
So how about we do this, Russ? We'll compromise here, because I think we're both like, maybe Blake Lizotte is making a belief that he can play 3C. So maybe instead of going out and getting the third line center, like you would hope for O'Reilly, I'd kind of made a shout for Monahan. Maybe they go get a fourth line center rather than let Lizotte play 3C. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's the route that they take. Because I agree. I mean, I do worry a little bit about come playoff time. How does Kupari handle that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure where I'm at with that.
I saw it a little bit.
I think he's stepping up to the table, though.
Yeah, no, and I think he's been playing good. I just don't know. The thing is, like, just go back to the Minnesota Wild game. There were times when they were matching up Kaprizov against that fourth line, and they were being hemmed in the zone the entire time. So you're going to see those matchups come into play come playoff time when they're away. And the thing is with the Kings is they're really solid in terms of players on the team and forwards that have center ice experience, face-off experience. But besides maybe Kopitar, Deneau, and Lizotte, I don't know who you're going to have out there taking tough face-off. Velarde, maybe more, maybe. I don't know. So I think if you can add maybe just another piece that can give you an option as a face-off in the face-off dot, especially on the penalty kill, so you don't have like a Deneau or a Kopitar playing penalty kill minutes, I think there's that opportunity there for Blake to take a look at.
That's something definitely to consider. I mean, man, this team's exciting. This team's exciting to where I think, depending on where the trade line deadline ends up, you really have some real confidence going into the playoffs there. So
I'm going to say I'm going to throw one more thing out there, and now I'm going back and forth a little bit because I keep going back to, because right now the fourth line wingers are Gabe Velarde and Arthur Kaliev. And I think now the way I am, as I think through this and looking at a lot of the statistics and stuff, it's like maybe third C does make sense, because Blake Lizotte, we're seeing him create offense. We're seeing him be one of the top shot assists and shot contributors on the team. Mm-hmm. Get those guys, get Velarde and Kaliev, somebody that can play that style. And that's Blake Lizotte. And then maybe you find your 3C. I wonder if maybe it makes sense. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. Maybe you flip Kupari and Lizotte. You have Fiala can drive that third line. So maybe you put Kupari with Fiala and Iafallo, and then Lizotte can drive that fourth line and get those other guys. Because believe it, like, Lizotte is providing more offense than Rasmus Kupari. He just is. And I think he's shown he can do that with or without Kevin Fiala too. So I think Lizotte would bring a little bit more offense to that fourth line when you have two really, really skilled offensive players in Kaliev and Velarde. And maybe Kupari. Now, again, how does Kupari handle third line minutes in the playoffs? That's a legitimate question. But I don't know, just something like that would be something I wouldn't mind seeing here and there for a little bit, because I think there could be something to it.
Do you think
think
Byfield,
would-
because I know they were just kind of jumbling the lines, but do you think Byfield eventually will get a chance to play some center again, or do you think?
I'm gonna say, yeah, probably. I mean, you mean this year, I assume.
Yeah.
Probably, but I don't know that it'll be on any sort of consistent basis unless there's something drastic that happens, like there's an injury or something really hits the fan for like there's like a 2-week skid where they just totally got nothing going all of a sudden, and maybe they jumble some things up. But right now, I think it's probably difficult to make a case to move much, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And just to go back to your Kupari point, I think wasn't Fiala, Kupari, and Grunstrom, they were a pretty solid line together for a while at the beginning of the year. Once that was the first time Fiala moved down, right? I believe it was Kupari that was
and Fiala. We were talking. That's when we talked about like the line was going so well because hey, Kevin Fiala can just drive a line from wherever he is. It's like that's Blake can use that, or McClellan can use that player to just throughout the lineup to get a line going. So
yeah,
I have concerns about Kupari handling those minutes, potential matchups in playoffs.
So,
but I'm not opposed to trying it here.
So that Kupari, Grunstrom, Fiala line, obviously Iafallo is an upgrade from Grunstrom, but they played 88 minutes over 12 games. Their expected goals for was the third best line of any line over 50 minutes at 62.7. Their goals against, though, was 3.1. So, I mean, they were creating a lot of offense, but, they were also allowing a lot.
There was a lot going on.
Yeah. That's any Fiala line, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I don't believe Jad is injured. We have Shankmaster asking if Jad is injured. I haven't seen anything from that, right?
I know. That's one thing, too, is I'm glad McClellan talked about it after the Anaheim game because I've been so impressed with the way Anderson Dolan had been playing before he came into the lineup, and I knew it was coming. I'm sure he knew it was coming with Velarde healthy, with Kaliev healthy. Those players are obviously going to be in the lineup when they're healthy. So to sit Anderson Dolan is just so tough because he's been playing so well. He's been scoring too, and the players love him, the coaches love him, and I'm just glad that McClellan kind of emphasized a little bit about how much of a difficult conversation that was that he had to have with that player because of how well he'd been playing. So it's just tough because I'm at this point where I just want to see him be playing NHL games. I don't care where it's at because he's such a good player. He such a good kid. He deserves NHL minutes right now. So hopefully, I'm hoping it's with the Kings at some point. They can find a spot for him. But yeah, right now, fortunately, there isn't one.
This is the good problem they have. But again, this is why we've talked about. Is I always say he's the best 13th forward you could have, and a coach loves him because you can play him anywhere, wing, center, top line, fourth line, and he can give you good minutes, and he's not going to hurt you. And this is, unfortunately, this is the role. He plays it really well when guys go down, and he can fill in and be a really good player. But when everybody's healthy, he's just on the outside looking in, and unfortunately, because I love the player too. I think he's a really good depth guy to have. With
how good this team is cooking, obviously, just a quick thought: where do you rank the forward group as far as? Obviously, you don't have the high end McDavids, but you have Fiala playing over a point per game. Where do you rank the forward group in the West?
Boy, that's a good question. Off the top of my head,
yeah,
I would say. It's got to be behind maybe only Edmonton.
That's what I would say. Yeah, I'd say.
You have Winnipeg. You got Ehlers, Connor.
Are you talking about the Western Conference?
Yeah.
I'm not even going to bring up the East because I'm not going there. They're just way better. But the West,
I want to say the Avs are up there, but they don't really have a second line center.
No, and they're hurt. They're
hurt too.
Not there.
When they're healthy, you have Nichushkin, Rantanen, McKinnon,
but they're not healthy right now.
But they're on, yeah. So
I would say top three easily.
Besides the Pacific, I don't see anybody else besides Edmonton. Maybe Dallas.
Dallas is sneaky.
With Robertson.
Yeah,
but
Pavelski
I don't know. They're deep. The Kings are deep. Down the middle, you have Lizotte, Deneau, and Kopitar, and the way that Kempe's scoring, the way that Fiala's been playing. Yeah, it's tough. I think the only line that's really kind of struggling, I guess, quote unquote, is the Deneau line with Moore and Arvidsson. All right, and Arvidsson's still playing well. It's just Moore hasn't really been contributing much in terms of production, even though he's still playing really well. So you just want, if once that line gets going, man, this team is going to be tough to beat.
Let's bring it over here to our favorite segment, as always, the trade rumors until March 3rd.
Yes.
Obviously, we had LA Kings fans frenzy when it was pretty much, Chychrun being pulled off the ice, not playing. We thought it was imminent. I know, Russ, you heard a lot of things up in the box during the jersey ceremony that you thought it was even more of a guarantee. I know you were throwing out percentages, 80% out there, and then every fan on Monday was refreshing Twitter every 10 seconds to see if something was being tweeted out, and then nothing. He's back practicing. I think there was a deal in place, and then it just the wrinkle couldn't be ironed out, and then it kind of went away. What are your guys' feeling on that?
Yeah, it's been this roller coaster ride ever since that Dustin Brown ceremony. So let's just summarize what has happened since then. That ceremony happens, or that day, Chychrun gets held out for trade-related reasons. I remember seeing the tweet on my drive to the arena.
Peterson giving up 4 in two quarters so far, or in 2 periods so far.
Oh yeah, fun. So that happens with Chychrun held off. Jeff Merrick goes on 32 Thoughts and says that the Leafs are out of it, the Oilers out of it, and the Kings are quote unquote pouring cold water on the situation. So I'm sitting in the press box. I get told by someone I find very credible that the Kings are more than likely going to announce Chychrun, and it's going to be 80% going to happen on Monday. So I'm thinking, oh man, let's go. And yeah, sure enough, it made all the sense in the world at that time, right? Like the Kings aren't going to want to announce anything. It was also really the first time that we've ever heard a player get sat and the team come out and straight up say it's for trade-related reasons. So at that point, everyone's trying to figure out, oh, what does that even mean? That must mean there's a trade imminent at that point. So, yeah, when you come out and everybody's thinking like, oh, then more than likely the Kings are just letting the Dustin Brown ceremony be the forefront, not letting any questions be asked, and then let's just announce the Chychrun trade after the Super Bowl. And sure enough, Monday comes and nothing happens. And it seems like we had the Brent Clarke rumors of him involved. That turned out to be negated. And then we've had we've heard rumors about money being involved that the Coyotes have kind of backed away from. So there's thoughts about there was a trade in place, but now that the Coyotes are backing out of it. So there's been all this going on, and it still seems like the Kings are somewhat in the driver's seat for this move. And they definitely should be. I mean, we've talked about this every episode, it feels like, that Chychrun should be the number one trade target for the Kings because he solidifies the one spot that they're missing in terms of players on the ice and not just goaltending. The left shot defenseman is more than likely a top 10 defenseman when he's healthy. So if you can go out and get him, then do what you can to get him. And I don't know, it just feels like we're just in this standstill now. And hopefully it comes to a head. I don't know if it's the players that are involved or if it's the money that's involved, if it's maybe Brent Clarke was involved and now he's not. It's just, there's just been this up and down story that's been going on, and we'll see how long it lasts when we get to March 3rd.
Yeah, I'm inclined to believe, and obviously, listen, I have no idea I don't know anything, but I'm inclined to believe that
I don't know anything. Let's start. Yeah, we all don't know anything here too. I like it.
There was. I don't think Arizona all of a sudden makes the decision on February 11th. You know what? Today's the day. We're done. He's done. We're not playing him, and they're gonna scratch him indefinitely. I do genuinely believe that there was something there. Maybe not imminent, going to be done that night, but it was something that was close enough that they were putting the final pieces together that, okay, we're going to scratch him because I think we're getting close here. Again, not imminent, but getting close. Now, my opinion here is if it sounds like there was a contract, some sort of money, Cal Peterson's name was mentioned. I don't know if it was Cal Peterson. Right? It obviously makes sense from LA's standpoint if they want to try to move the contract. And if Arizona balked at it, I think the reason it's gone quiet is because the Kings are probably still, again, like you said, they obviously, if it's true, in my theory or guess is that there was a deal that was really close, then there was a deal that Arizona liked enough. Now it's just figuring out the money. And if Arizona wasn't going to do it, now LA's got to try to find somebody to take this money. Now, whoever that is, if it's Cal Peterson, if it's somebody else's contract, they have to find somebody to take that money. If and when that happens, then maybe we see the deal for Chychrun get executed. That's just my guess on the whole thing. I'll say that Boston inching apparently closer to Vladislav Gavrikov, is noteworthy. I think it potentially takes them out of I think it would have to take them out of the Chychrun running just because of the money. But there's a lot of teams still involved in Chychrun and teams that might be a surprise to people because they're not necessarily, you would think of them as quote unquote buyers, right? I mean, if you look at Ottawa could be in for Chychrun, you look at St. Louis could be in for Chychrun, you could look at Buffalo could be in for Chychrun. There's a lot here. Toronto, I don't rule out making a trade for a defenseman. So there's still other teams that are poking around, I'm sure. But if the Kings have to find it, my guess is the Kings have to find a taker for a contract that Arizona didn't want to take.
That's what it kind of feels like, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's something to watch for. And I mean, speaking of trade deadline, Patty King almost on the verge of a hat trick. He's really bumping the value there for Chicago. But yeah, I mean, I hope it's. I just hope it's not this. I hope it's not Rob Blake holding other prospects too close, which I don't think it is. But I do think it probably, like you said, Russ. Like, okay, Chychrun was the piece they wanted. Rob said no. They got another deal to kind of be in place, and the money didn't work. Right, is what you said, Joe. So, to where it was still not ideal, and there's been other rumors about the Kings trying to remove a contract or whatever, as you guys mentioned earlier and foreshadowed earlier. I haven't heard that. I didn't know what that was all about. So maybe you guys want to enlighten the listeners there about that. But I think all those might be connected. You're looking at a lot of teams offloading contracts to be ready for March 3rd. I mean, the Kings should be one of the same, right? I mean, they are a winning team. They are ready to win now. Will they compete with the East? That probably not. But I think they have as much a shot as anybody in the West to make it to the Stanley Cup. So,
yeah, we're kind of like navigating new waters here with this whole like scratch for trade related reasons. We haven't seen this before. So when that was first announced, everyone just automatically assumed that a trade was just coming soon at some point. It's going to be announced, but Gavrikov's been scratched for a week now. Chychrun's been scratched for like a week and a half. It's like, okay, like, you almost feel for the player because it's like he just probably wants to play anywhere at this point. Like, and then also too, it's like, look at the teams that are doing it. These are teams that want to lose games. So
yeah.
You also have that you have to add to the equation as well. But I think so this is my theory. Like, I think there was a deal in place for Chychrun at one point that included that the teams maybe agreed upon, and then the Kings try to add some more money because they maybe thought that, or maybe try to get some more cap space. Maybe they want to make some more moves later. Because the Kings are right up against in the cap. They don't have that much room. They'd have to clear maybe a little bit. So yeah, Cal Peterson maybe makes the most sense, but that's a lot to ask for, to have to give up Cal Peterson's contract, especially for Arizona, who's a team that probably not going to want to commit to another 2 years of a goaltender at $5 million. My guess is maybe like a player like Carl Grundstrom was trying to be added to the piece. He's only got $1.3 million on his deal for next year, but that's also a piece maybe that Arizona maybe doesn't want, and you're going to have to sweeten it up a little bit. So I don't know. It's just tough. I don't see a Sean Walker being added to it because I think the Kings would have liked to have that depth. If Chychrun is still there, you can just have Sean Walker.
You heard Lemieux. I heard Lemieux's name thrown around.
Lemieux, he's a pending UFA. I mean, I didn't see that happening, but I think it was more about money that's still on the books going into next season.
Okay,
is what maybe the Kings were trying to offload. So, but yeah, it's like I said, we don't know anything. It's kind of we're all just trying to figure this out as we go. But I would still think that the Kings are in the driver's seat for this. They obviously they can beat anybody for the price that Arizona is willing to pay. I think there was another report that came out that said they're still looking for at least a first round pick and another first round pick caliber player. I mean, the report, I think Greg Wyshynski came out that said that they offered first rounder and Gabe Velarde last year. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that, I mean, you think about it, at that point last year, Gabe Velarde we were talking about him as a fringe NHL player. We didn't even know what he was going to be. But if you think about Gabe Velarde now, that maybe ups the package a little bit. So
Well,
I don't know if that's still on the table.
That's the thing. Like, presumably, Byfield and Clarke have been, as it's been kind of reported, quote unquote reported, they're not going anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So immediately your top two prospects are off the table. If you take Blake literally at his word, where he doesn't want to take away from this team anymore, and some of his comments the other day, you would sort of think that means, okay, well, Kaliev's off the table and Velarde's off the table. So who's on the table, and how are you getting one of the top players that's on the market if you're not willing to trade anybody? And that's why I come back to, how do you get this guy? And this is the game of poker that they're playing right now. Like, is Spence enough of a centerpiece? No, not for me. Is it Spence and Turcotte with a first? Okay, now maybe Arizona picks up the phone. But, like, how are you getting this deal done without your top four guys, your top four prospects, right? Like, I know Kaliev is graduated. He's not in Velarde, not prospects, but you know what I mean? Like, your top four trade assets, I'll call them. So that's what's interesting to me, is that's great that these guys are not going anywhere or untouchable, or at least two of them are reportedly. But how are you pulling this deal off? And I think that's probably why the deal hasn't been made. Like, I think if Clarke was made available, the deal is probably done. If Byfield was made available, the deal's probably been done by now. So I'm very curious. I'm genuinely, what is the package that gets this deal done? And if it is Spence and Turcotte in a first, and then again, there has to be money involved here somewhere. So is that something that the Kings are willing to do? Is that something that we would be willing to do if we're going to have a conversation about it? Is that something Arizona entertains? I don't know. I mean, it's still interesting to me, because I think it's, I think back to the Jack Eichel saga, and the Rangers were like, oh yeah, well, we're not trading this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, or this guy, or this guy, or that guy. Like, how are you going to get one of the top players on the market if you're not willing to trade anybody? So
I'm pretty sure Buchnevich was one of those players they didn't want to trade.
So I'm fascinated by this whole thing, is to see what the package ultimately ends up being for Chychrun. And as you alluded to, Russ, and I'd have to find it on Twitter, but I did see earlier that, yeah, the package really, they're still looking for, and they're more than comfortable sitting through the till the summer, which I think might be a little posturing, but
because then Chychrun has way more say in where he goes. Like, you have to assume they want to get him offloaded this year because of the fact that it makes it easier for them to execute.
I would
trade.
think.
Yeah, I believe he has a no movement clause that kicks in the summer. So yeah, it's this deal's coming. This deal's going to be made.
Could it be as easy as Arizona's trying to get greedy and shop the offer that the Kings gave them around? I mean, they don't have to move him.
I mean,
anything, sure.
Yeah, I mean, if they're not getting what they want out of the Kings, then yeah, they could easily. I mean, this is the thing with Jacob Chychrun, is why we talk about him so much, is that his salary, his cap hit is so low in comparison to how good he is. Yeah, I mean, $4.6 million for 2 more years. Teams could figure out a way to clear cap space for that good of a player to bring him in.
I just don't think a lot of people realize how good he is either, and like why we keep talking about him. I know a lot of fans are like, oh, like they're asking way too much for him, and I even
he's a top 10 defenseman. He's a top 10 defenseman.
And it's not just the player; it's the contract and the age.
Exactly.
The total package.
You look at his metrics 5-on-5. He has better metrics than even Drew Doughty this season, 5-on-5 offensively. Like he would be you could make a statement for our best defenseman if he got traded. It definitely would be the second best defenseman on our team. Bar none.
Honestly, you can make a defenseman. You can make a case he's probably one of the better players on the team. To be honest with you, he's that good. I mean, he led the league in scoring as a defenseman 2 years ago. The Kings don't have any. Look, who's their highest scoring defenseman? Matt Roy has 8 goals.
So Domlish isn't at the Athletic and he's not the only one. I think Shayna helps him out. Shayna Goldman helps him out, and maybe others. But they have player cards and contract values, right? Jacob Chychrun makes $4.6 million. He is playing to a market value of $10.2 million. That's why he's worth the asking price. He's that freaking good. I mean, and the only question that you can have about Chychrun is not anything to do with, he's only an offensive player. That's not true. He's one-dimensional. That's not true. If you're concerned about his injury, he has been a player that's missed some time, and I will concede that. But I don't think the injuries, if I recall, the recent injuries that he's had are like, I think they're kind of fluky. Like he had a hand or a wrist injury or something. Like I don't know that these are things that are expected to, like, he's got a back injury, right? That's just going to linger, if you will. So yeah. And again, like if you're a team that's looking to win the West, which they can, that's a guy that certainly, doesn't guarantee anything, but it certainly improves your team significantly.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is how much does Rob Blake want to go for it? Because you look at the Western Conference, nobody scares me in terms of, we talked about the Flames kind of scaring, but if the Flames are the teams that scare you the most, then you have to go for it, right?
Yeah.
And also, this could be Jonathan Quick's last year as in the NHL. How much emphasis do you want to put on trying to maybe get him another cup so bring in as much talent as you can before that happens?
And not only that, but they've talked about like Andrzej Kopitar, Drew Doughty, like they want to try to win with these guys. Then the time is now, and the Western Conference is there for the taking. And a guy like Chychrun, he doesn't just help you for this season; he helps you for next season and the season after that. So hypothetically, even if it costs you a Spence and a Turcotte, they're not helping you anywhere near the level that Chychrun would in the next 2 seasons.
You're getting the best player out of that trade, and like I keep
not even close.
And I keep saying this to fans. It's like even if Turcotte becomes what we thought he could have been at the number 5 pick, it's still worth it because Chychrun is already that player. So like it doesn't make a difference to me. Like I think the only, obviously, you guys know my untouchable is Byfield and Clarke. I wouldn't even do. I know that's probably asinine, but I probably wouldn't even do a 1-for-1 trade Clarke for Chychrun, just because I think so highly of the future for Clarke. But you're looking at a player in Chychrun that's going to help the team now. He's offensively a juggernaut. Carter Score's coming in here saying he's probably the 3rd best player on the team, not just D-man.
I'm not going to argue it.
Yep.
Johnny's saying not my Walker is number 1 defenseman, and then Chychrun. Smiley face.
I love the not my Walker hashtag. I remain, if skeptical is not the word, then curious as how do they do this without Clarke, Byfield, Kaliev, or Velarde? How the hell does that happen?
Yeah.
Because
I've said multiple times that I think for me, the untouchables. I told you guys I could have been convinced of Clarke. That's kind of changing. I think the way that they've kind of invested all this time, it seems like they're really investing in Clarke's future. So I'm not opposed to that. Obviously he's gonna be a great player. So Byfield and Clarke off the table. I'm starting to be like, I could be convinced with Kaliev because I was kind of on the fence with keeping Kaliev, but man, the way that Martin Chromiak's been playing, the way that Alex Laferriere has been playing, Francisco Pinelli's been playing, there's forwards that are coming up that can score goals. And that's the thing with Kaliev is he's a pure goal scorer. And if he can be, I mean, he's also a little bit more than that, but if he's just has been a nom de plume. So if you can maybe add a piece like Kaliev.
And Kempe's on pace for 40. Like, it's not like we don't have scoring. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And not only that, if the easiest position, easy is probably the wrong word, but you know what I'm getting at. The easiest position to replace is a winger, particularly a scoring winger that I don't want to call Kaliev one-dimensional. I don't think that's fair to the improvements that he's made to his game. But I think that maybe I'll call him a non-play driving type of winger. Those guys you can replace. Like, I love Kaliev, don't get me wrong, right? But like if you're looking at like, okay, top end right shot D, top end left shot D, top C, play driving wingers, like top elite wingers, like those are really difficult pieces to replace. A winger, at least at this stage of his career, of Kaliev's, I think that's, again, it's the easiest of the positions, in my opinion, to replace, particularly when you're looking at this year. And while he is being big, doing a nice job on the power play, of course, he's playing for the most part a fourth line role. So I would be on board with it just because when I look at it from a position standpoint, center is really difficult. I just said D is really difficult. So, that's where I'm coming from with this. But again, if you were to take Blake literally at his word, where he doesn't want to take away from the team, Kelly would be taking away. Velarde would be taking away from the roster as it's constructed. So I don't know.
I mean, you just also have to trade out from a point of strength. I mean, how much were we just talking about how they couldn't find roster spots? They're trying to find roster spots for Jaron Anderson-Dolan, who's playing really well. Velarde's on the fourth line, which is just crazy. I mean, and 10 of the 12 forwards that played in last night's game are signed for next year, besides Velarde and I think Kupari or RFAs. So more than likely, those players are going to be fourth line players again next year if everybody's healthy, barring any trades. So yeah, you have all these forwards at your disposal that could be added to trades as a trade package, maybe sweeten the pot a little bit, and like a Velarde or a Kaliev, maybe make the move. And then you fix probably the biggest piece that's missing for the Kings next year. Because let's look at the left side of the defense who's signed next year. It's Mikey Anderson. It's Tobias Bjornfoot. I don't know if that's going to win a lot of games if you want Sean Durzi still to play on the left side.
People are going to get mad at me for this. Players with more 5-on-5 goals than Arthur Kaliev, Jared Anderson-Dolan, Carl Grunstrom, Matt Roy, Sean Walker, Mikey Anderson has the same amount. Samuel Fagimo has the same amount. So this isn't a negative. I don't mean this to be a negative on Arthur Kaliev. What I'm getting at is he's a player he's a power play specialist right now, which is valuable. Don't get me wrong. I just feel like this is a replaceable type of position where the Kings are right now. And as you alluded to, Russ, the Kings happen to be flush with prospects, particularly on the wing, that can put pucks in the net right now. And if Kaliev was playing a role where he was like, playing a consistent top six role where like those minutes are valuable, like they need him in there, then maybe it's a tougher trade to make. So it's hard for me to say this without like coming across as being overly negative on Arthur Kaliev, because I'm really, really not. I'm just strictly talking about position and asset and replacement level is all I'm talking about. So that's why you can sell me on that. If that's what Arizona were asking for, that wouldn't keep me from the deal.
I wouldn't even blink at it.
Yeah, and I even talked about the forwards when I was talking about the forwards that are signed for next year. I didn't even mention a Samuel Fagimo or Alex Turcotte or Marty Chromiak, all these players that are playing really well. Francesco Pinelli is going to be in the AHL next year. I mean, you have studs. Alex Laferriere most likely might be in the AHL next year. You have studs that are still coming, and there's not a lot of roster spots for them because this I mean, let's be frank, the Kings forward group, there's only one player that's 30 years old of age or older, and that's Kopitar right now. So they're relatively a pretty young team. So you still have a lot of good young forwards that are signed to pretty long-term deals too. Trevor Moore just signed a long-term deal. Kempe's got 3 more years left. Fiala's got a long-term deal. I think Iafale's got 2 more years left. So there's still players that are going to be around here for quite a while. And it's just, if you can just fix that one spot that's missing right now for LA in terms of left shot defenseman, I think you go out and do your best to try to get it done.
Agreed. Well, I think that's going to do it for us. Outside, let's do a quick player of the week.
Player of the week for me,
or 2 weeks. I'll probably go Kempe because the 4 straight goals in that game. Did I steal yours? Was that?
No, I'll go with Fiala just because what he had 2 games, 3 points each, and that move was just I loved it. I think I watched it like 30 times.
Blake Lazat, dude's been on fire. I'm loving
Red
it. Putting
hot.
pucks in that. Man. I'm
Scoring
just
centerman.
So happy for Blake Lazat.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us today. As always, you can find all of the written work there at hockeyroyalty.com. You can follow us on Twitter at hockey_royalty, at Randall Commando, at NHL Russell, at JW Paterino. A little tease here for you guys. We are getting a player from the Reign on tomorrow to do an interview. That'll be out later on this week, so keep an eye out for that. Love you guys in the chat. Thank you for always coming in here. You guys mean the world to us here at Hockey Royalty. Let's get a freaking trade to go down, right? Let's just do it. Let's break the ice. Let's get it going.
Let's wait till the 3rd.
Let's wait. We're doing a live stream on the 3rd. Let's wait till that happens.
Yeah, live stream on the 3rd. We're probably going to try to get a live stream for watching the game sometime during this road trip. So keep an ear out for that as well. Appreciate you guys. Carter Scores coming here. Go Kings Go. Shank Master with a great show. Johnny Van Patna. Great times. Go Kings Go. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. And as always on this podcast, Go Kings Go.